Well, Mrs. Robertson, you now have your 30 seconds for your question.
Thank you. Tom, you're part of the war against women. You've supported continued... Wait.
Please, everybody, please.
I get a little time, right?
All right, folks, that's from a debate in upstate New York, and a female candidate on the Democrat side obviously bringing up the war on women, and you heard the crowd react. Joining us now is former CEO of Hewlett-Packard, founder of Unlocking Potential Project, up-project.com, Carly Fiorina. Good to talk to you again.
It's great to be with you. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I appreciate it. I want to get to a piece that you wrote that should concern everybody and these professional activists and the pressure campaigns that they wage. But let's talk about the Democrats. You know, traditionally they could pull out of their hat in recent years the war on women and a couple of other issues, minimum wage, blah, 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 and you know, ride to victory. It's not working out that way this time.
Well, it's not. We have a lot of data that suggests that people are tiring of the slogans and the gestures, and women as well as men are willing to look through that. Now, a lot of people have been working very hard to make sure that people really understand the facts, but there is more and more evidence that women are swinging over to the Republican side, and I think partially it's because, you know, what are the top issues for women? It's jobs in the economy, it's national security, it's health care, it's education. And I think women and men are realizing that these gestures and these slogans are not serious, and that we're living in serious times, and people are undergoing serious issues, and we need serious leadership.
Right, and there's not much difference in the issues that affect or are affecting today men and women. So many women, you know, need the income, running a household, or single parents, etc., or they're married and their husbands have lost their job. So everyone, no matter what your sex is, you're kind of in the same boat with the same issues weighing on your mind.
Well, exactly right. And women are 50% of this nation. They're 53% of voters. So women are actually the majority of voters. And so for such a huge group of women, of course they care about every issue, because you're right. They're worried about their own jobs, their husband's jobs, their children's future. They look at the headlines on Ebola and ISIS, and they worry about our nation's security. Of course they worry about all those issues. And so on top of everything else, this war on women propaganda that Democrats have been throwing out there for the last couple of election cycles, it's insulting to women. Every issue is a woman's issue.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about this, because you know, this happens in media too. In media, you get a small group of people who claim to represent hundreds of thousands. They bombard a media outlet or whatever with emails and threaten protests outside the station, and you know, and usually they'll get their will. The station manager or management will cave. They don't want the bad publicity, and they think that they've averted a disaster, when in fact it's a handful of professional agitators or activists, as you put it in your column. But this goes on the corporate scale, as you point out, specifically with regard to energy policy, but other policy as well.
Yes, it does, and it's really a shame, because what we have are professional activists hijacking political discourse. You know, it's fine for people to disagree. These are complex issues. What's not fine is that complex issues get boiled down to simple slogans that are wrong. And so when we have people, for example, who push back against any reasonable discussion of what our policy should be around energy and climate change by lumping people into one of two categories, you're either a global warming denier or you're on the right side of truth and the American way, that's a terrible disservice to our nation and to our citizens. And it's what the Democratic Party has tended to do over the last couple election cycles. You know, you're either for women because you're pro-choice, or you're against women because you're pro-life. That's really a disservice to everyone.
I know you've called on companies to combat this and take a stand. Are you confident that many or the majority will?
Well, you know what I think? I think it's the beginning of a conversation. I wouldn't presume to think that a single column that I write would change corporate behavior. But what I hope it will do because I am a former CEO, because I understand the pressures that a CEO is under. I hope that what it will do is start a conversation, start people thinking, you know what, maybe by bowing to this pressure, I really am doing a disservice to my shareholders, to my employees, to my customers.
Carly, I think you have started that conversation. I'm glad you did. It's long overdue. And I thank you very much for joining us. Look forward to talking to you again.
All right. Thanks so much for having me. Have a great day.
My pleasure. Carly Fiorina, ladies and gentlemen. And when we return, we will return with personal consultant for the New York Yankees and author of a great new children's book. Ray Negron will be here. That'll be after the break. But first, of course, the midterms now, as you well know, 6 days away, and Newsmax TV is doing such a great job in previewing the elections. California's 52nd CD, a race with our Road to the Midterms update. It's coming up right now.
Carl DeMeo is looking to oust first-time Democratic Representative Scott Peters from California's 52nd Congressional District. It's a headline-grabbing race. DeMeo is one of 3 openly gay candidates running for Congress in 2014. February, his campaign made history when DeMeo featured his same-sex partner in a political ad. From there, however, the headlines became scandalous. First, one of DeMeo's former staffers accused him of sexual harassment and then of trying to buy his silence. No charges were filed. Next, DeMeo's campaign manager came under fire for an internal email. San Diego's ABC affiliate reports that email warned DeMeo's staffers to watch out for young black people at campaign events, as they might be spies for the Peters campaign. Public apologies have since been made. And when Peters brings up these headlines, DeMeo accuses him of running a smear campaign. So where do the candidates stand on the issues? UT San Diego, a local newspaper, breaks them down. The Affordable Care Act, DeMeo supports parts of it, like coverage for those with pre-existing conditions and children being able to stay on their parents' policies longer. Peters agrees the legislation has flaws and pushed for enrollment extensions for individuals as well as businesses. Minimum wage. Peters supports an increase to $10 an hour. DeMeo isn't opposed to an increase, but only if it's tied to other economic reforms. Gun control. Both support the Second Amendment. However, DeMeo wants to see expanded background checks and a focus on mental health. Peters is pushing for a ban on weapons like high-capacity assault rifles.
President Obama says we may still see some Ebola cases here at home. I'm Miranda Khan. This story tops our Newsmax Now update. But the president also says the only way to stop Ebola is in West Africa. He adds that workers treating the virus abroad and at home deserve respect. Meanwhile, the State Department spokesperson says comments about the Israeli prime minister are inappropriate, and an anonymous official called him a name in an interview. Attorney General Eric Holder says he expects a resolution in the dispute over reporter James Risen's testimony in a leaked case brought against Risen's alleged source. Houston's mayor withdraws a subpoena of sermons written by pastors in the city. This comes after the pastors called it a violation of their First Amendment rights. That was your very latest update. Always stay connected at Newsmax.com.